The metal corridor echoed with Quan's footsteps as he carried his toolbox through Station Tython 7. It was past midnight, and most of the crew slept in their quarters. He preferred the night shift. The machines hummed quieter, and nobody bothered him while he worked. Quan stopped at the broken mining drill in Bay 3. The drill had stopped working 2 days ago, and 3 other mechanics had already given up on it. They said it needed complete replacement. Quan didn't agree. Every machine had a voice if someone listened carefully enough. He pressed his ear against the cold metal housing and closed his eyes. There, a tiny clicking sound buried deep inside. Something was loose, not broken. He smiled and opened his toolbox. His communicator beeped suddenly, making him jump. Commander Hiren's voice came through sharp and urgent. "All personnel, we have an emergency docking request. This is not a drill." Quan straightened up. Emergency dockings were rare. The station floated in neutral space, far from any major shipping lanes. Most ships avoided this area. "A Dravix vessel is approaching with critical life support failure," Hiren continued. "They're requesting immediate assistance." Quan's breath caught. Dravix. He had never seen one in person. Nobody on the station had. The dragon-like aliens kept to themselves, rarely interacting with other species. Their ships passed through sometimes, but they never stopped. He left his tools and headed toward the observation deck. Other crew members were already gathering, their faces pressed against the windows. Station engineer Tai Yang stood beside the glass, his arms crossed. "This is strange," Tai Yang muttered. "Dravix never ask for help. They'd rather die than show weakness." Through the window, Quan saw a sleek silver ship approaching. It moved awkwardly, one engine sputtering. Scorch marks covered its hull. This vessel had seen trouble. The ship docked with a heavy clang that shook the entire station. Then they heard it. A sound unlike anything Quan had ever experienced. High-pitched, desperate, piercing. It vibrated through the metal walls, making his teeth ache. The sound came in waves, multiple voices crying together. "What is that?" someone whispered. Medical Officer Yuna rushed past them toward the docking bay, her medical kit bouncing against her hip. Quan and the others followed, drawn by terrible curiosity. The airlock door opened with a hiss. A massive figure stood in the doorway. Even hunched over with exhaustion, the Dravix towered over them. Velmara's scales shimmered like oil on water, deep purple and black. Wings folded tight against her back. Her eyes, large and golden, looked desperately tired. Behind her, the crying grew louder. 3 small shapes writhed in a cushioned container inside the ship. The Hatchlings. "Please," Velmara's voice rumbled, speaking in accented common language. "My ship's nursery systems failed. My children, they won't stop. I cannot make them stop." Yuna stepped forward carefully. "I'm a medical officer. May I examine them?" Velmara's scales bristled. "No, this is Dravix matter. I need only repairs. Fix my ship's environmental controls, then we leave." "But your children—" "I said no." Velmara's roar made everyone step back. The hatchlings' cries intensified, feeding off their mother's distress. Commander Hiren arrived, her expression stern. "We want to help. Please let us help." "You cannot understand," Velmara said, her voice breaking. "In my culture, parents must soothe their own young. To accept help is shame. But my mate, he died 3 days ago. Our ship was attacked. I am alone, and I cannot produce the right frequencies without him. My babies feel wrong. Everything feels wrong to them, and I cannot fix it." Tears rolled down her scaled face. The proud alien warrior was breaking apart before their eyes. Hiren's voice softened. "Where are you going?" "To the colony at Dravix Prime. But it is 2 weeks away. My babies have cried for 18 hours. They will not eat. They will not sleep. I fear—" She couldn't finish. Quan found himself speaking. I can fix your ship's systems. Let me look. Everyone turned to stare at him. Quan rarely spoke in groups. Velmara studied him with those golden eyes. You are the mechanic? Yes. I'm good with broken things. Something passed across Velmara's face. Hope, maybe, or desperation. Then fix it quickly, please. Quan grabbed his toolbox and entered the Dravik's vessel. The interior was beautiful, all smooth curves and warm lighting. But the crying drowned out everything else. The sound burrowed into his skull, primal and distressing. He found the environmental control room and started examining the damaged systems. Plasma conduits had overloaded. Easy fix, but time-consuming. He'd need at least 6 hours. As he worked, he moved closer to the nursery. The door was partially open. Quan glanced inside and saw them. 3 tiny creatures, no bigger than house cats. Their scales were translucent, showing the delicate bones beneath. Crystalline ridges ran down their spines, glowing faintly. They trembled as they cried, their small wings fluttering uselessly. Quan's heart ached. He had never wanted children of his own, but something about their helpless distress affected him deeply. He listened to their cries carefully, the same way he listened to broken machines. There was a pattern, a rhythm. The cries peaked and fell in specific intervals. It reminded him of feedback loops in damaged audio systems. His grandmother, Yunji, had been a musician. She taught him that every sound carried information. These hatchlings weren't just crying from hunger or discomfort. Their cries had structure, meaning. They were overwhelmed, overstimulated. The ship's damaged engines were producing a low-frequency hum that clashed with something in the hatchlings' biology. The environmental failure had removed their normal sensory filters. Everything was too loud, too bright, too much. Quan made a decision. He could fix the obvious damage, or he could fix the real problem. He went back to Velmara, who sat slumped against the corridor wall outside, her face buried in her clawed hands. The repairs will take hours, Quan said quietly. But I think I know why they won't stop crying. Your engines are creating interference. It's making everything worse for them. Velmara looked up. Can you stop it? Maybe, but I'll need to work near the nursery. Very near. I need to hear how the sounds interact. Then do it, she whispered. Please do anything. Quan returned to his work. But now he had a different goal. As his hands moved through wires and circuits, his mind worked on a bigger puzzle. How do you comfort something so alien? How do you speak to a creature whose language you don't know? The hatchling's cries grew weaker as the hours passed. That scared him more than the loud crying. Silence from children was never good. Dawn approached on the station's artificial cycle. Quan had fixed the obvious damage. The environmental systems hummed back to life, but the hatchlings still cried, softer now, exhausted. Velmara appeared in the doorway. She had aged years in one night. I have failed them, she said simply. Without my mate, I am not enough. Quan set down his tools. Then let me try something. Velmara stared at Quan for a long moment. Her golden eyes searched his face for something. Finally, she nodded and stepped aside. Quan entered the nursery slowly. The 3 hatchlings lay curled together in their padded nest, their tiny bodies shaking with each cry. Up close, they were even more delicate than he had thought. Their translucent scales caught the light, creating rainbow patterns across the walls. Their names? Quan asked softly. Vix, the smallest. Rin, with the darker scales. Kyle, the largest. Velmara's voice cracked. They hatched only 4 days ago. They have known nothing but fear and pain since their father died. Quan knelt beside the nest. The hatchling's cries changed pitch slightly, responding to his presence. He wasn't sure if that was good or bad. In Dravik's culture, Velmara continued, both parents share the burden of calming. We produce specific pheromones and sound frequencies together. The mother creates one frequency, the father another. Together they form a complete harmonic that regulates the hatchling's neural development. Neural development? Quan looked up. Velmara touched the crystalline ridges on little Vix's spine. These are not decorative. They are part of their nervous system. External nerves that process sensory information. Without proper harmonics, the ridges cannot filter stimulation correctly. Everything overwhelms them. Too much light, too much sound, too much sensation. Quan understood now. These babies were drowning in input they couldn't process. Their cries were neurological distress, not simple hunger or discomfort. Can they survive without the complete harmonic? He asked. Velmara's silence was answer enough. Outside in the corridor, voices rose. Commander Hyrin had brought Yuna and another crew member, a xenobiologist named Sora. "We've been researching," Sora said, rushing in with her datapad. "Dravik's hatchlings require specific resonance frequencies between 200 and 400 Hz, varying in a complex pattern. The mother alone can produce frequencies between 200 and 280 Hz. The father produces 320 to 400 Hz. Together, they cover the full spectrum needed." "Can we synthesize the missing frequencies artificially?" Hyrin asked. Sora shook her head. "We tried. The hatchling's neural ridges can detect artificial sources. They respond only to organic frequencies, specifically from living vocal cords or resonance chambers." "Then we need to find another Dravik's male," Yuna said. "The nearest Dravik's colony is 2 weeks away," Velmara said flatly. "My children have hours, not weeks. Already they refuse food. Their cries are weakening. Soon their neural ridges will shut down permanently to protect against overstimulation. Once that happens, they will never develop properly. They will live, but they will not truly be alive." The room fell silent except for the soft, heartbreaking cries of the 3 hatchlings. Quan reached out slowly and placed his hand near Vix, not touching, just close. The smallest hatchling's crystalline ridges flickered slightly, sensing his warmth. "What if someone else tried?" Quan asked. "Someone not Dravik's?" "Impossible," Velmara said immediately. "No other species has the correct vocal structure." "But what if someone did?" Quan pressed. "What if someone could accidentally produce the right frequencies?" Sora's eyes widened. She began typing rapidly on her datapad. Wait, that's actually... Human vocal cords have an unusual range. We can produce frequencies from about 85 Hz to over 1000 Hz. It's one of the most versatile vocal ranges in known species. "But can humans produce the specific patterns needed?" Hyrin asked. "Only one way to find out," Quan said. Before anyone could stop him, he began to hum. It was the lullaby his grandmother Yunji used to sing when he was small and couldn't sleep during thunderstorms. A simple, repetitive melody that rose and fell in gentle waves. Vix stopped crying. The tiny hatchling's head lifted slightly, her crystalline ridges glowing brighter. Her large eyes, still unfocused, turned toward Quan. "Don't stop," Velmara whispered urgently. Quan kept humming, maintaining the same pattern. Rin's cries faltered next, fading to confused whimpers. Kyle, the largest, took longer, but eventually even he quieted. 3 pairs of eyes stared at Quan. The nursery fell silent for the first time in 20 hours. Sora's hands shook as she held her scanner near the hatchlings. Incredible. His vocal frequency is hitting multiple points in the needed spectrum. Not perfectly, not the complete pattern, but enough. Enough to give them relief. Velmara sank to her knees beside the nest, tears streaming freely now. "How is this possible?" "Humans are generalists," Sora said, her voice excited. "We evolved to be adaptable rather than specialized. Our vocal range is broad because we needed to communicate in diverse environments. By pure chance, that range overlaps with what your children need." Quan continued humming. But his throat was starting to hurt. He couldn't maintain this forever. "Can we record it?" Yuna asked. Play it back artificially? No, Sora said. Look at the ridges. They're responding to micro-variations in his humming. Tiny fluctuations caused by breathing, emotion, fatigue. Those variations are what make it organic. A recording would be too perfect, too static. They'd recognize it as artificial. As if to prove the point, Quan's humming wavered slightly as he drew breath. The hatchlings shifted immediately, their ridges dimming. He resumed quickly, and they settled again. This isn't sustainable, Hyarin said. He can't hum for 2 weeks straight. I know, Velmara said. But it is more than I had before. More than I could do alone. She looked at Quan with something like wonder. Why do you help? You do not know us. My people have not been kind to yours. Quan paused his humming just long enough to answer. They're babies. They're scared. That's enough reason. The simplicity of his answer seemed to affect Velmara deeply. She turned away, her wings trembling. Tae Yang appeared in the doorway. Commander, we have a problem. A Dravix military vessel just entered scanning range. They're hailing us. Put them through, Yirin said. A deep voice boomed through the ship's communication system. This is Commander Veltar of the Dravix Defense Fleet. We detected Velmara's distress beacon. We are here to retrieve her and assess her situation. Velmara's scales paled. No, not him. You know him, Hyarin asked. He is my brother. He will enforce our laws. He will not allow aliens near my children. He will take me home immediately, regardless of their condition. Velmara looked at the 3 peaceful hatchlings, then at Quan. Please, I need more time. How long until they arrive? Yirin asked Tae Yang. 4 hours at their current speed. 4 hours. Quan looked at the tiny creatures who had finally found peace. 4 hours to figure out how to convince a proud alien warrior that his sister needed help from a species he probably considered inferior. 4 hours to save 3 lives that shouldn't have been his responsibility, but somehow were. Vix made a small chirping sound and crawled closer to Quan's hand, drawn by his warmth. She pressed against his fingers, her scales soft as silk. The trust in that simple gesture broke something in Quan's chest. I won't let them hurt you, he whispered to the hatchlings, then resumed humming. Velmara watched him with her ancient golden eyes. You truly mean that? Yes. Then we prepare for war, she said grimly. My brother will not accept this easily, but I will not let my children suffer for pride, not anymore. The station crew looked at each other. They had 4 hours to change the mind of an alien commander who valued honor above all else. 4 hours to prove that sometimes the strongest thing anyone can do is accept help. Quan hummed his grandmother's lullaby and hoped it would be enough. Quan's throat burned. He had been humming for 40 minutes straight, stopping only for quick sips of water that Yuna brought him. The hatchlings remained calm as long as he continued, but the moment he paused, their distress returned. This won't work long-term, Sora said, studying her scanner readings. His voice is already showing strain. We need a better solution before Veltar arrives. Tae Yang paced the corridor outside the nursery. Can we synthesize something? Mix recordings of Velmara's voice with Quan's humming? Already tried, Sora replied, frustrated. The hatchlings detect the artificial mixing. Their neural ridges are too sensitive. It has to be genuinely organic. Quan shifted his position, his legs cramping from kneeling. Vix had fallen asleep, pressed against his knee. Rin and Kyle dozed nearby, their breathing finally steady and peaceful. He was terrified to move and wake them. Velmara sat across from him, watching her children sleep for the first time in days. In all of Dravix history, no other species has ever calmed our young. Our scientists believed it was genetically impossible. Maybe your scientists were wrong, Hyarin said from the doorway. Maybe there's more connection between species than anyone realizes. Or maybe, Sora said slowly. It's just statistical luck. Humans have such a wide vocal range that we're bound to overlap with someone's needs. We're not special. We're just versatile. Feels pretty special right now, Quan whispered, careful not to disturb the sleeping hatchlings. His humming had become automatic, a background rhythm he maintained even while talking softly. Yuna returned with a medical scanner. I need to check your throat. You're pushing your voice too hard. I'm fine. You're not. Let me look. Quan reluctantly paused his humming for the scan. Immediately, Vix's eyes snapped open. The tiny hatchling made a distressed chirp and crawled onto Quan's lap, pressing her face against his chest. He could feel her crystalline ridges vibrating against him, searching for his voice. Shh, he murmured, resuming the lullaby. Vix settled again, her ridges glowing softly. She's bonding to you, Velmara said, her voice strange. Dravik's hatchlings imprint on whoever provides their primary comfort in the first week of life, usually both parents. But Vix has chosen you. Chosen me? Look at her ridges. They're synchronizing with your heartbeat now, not just your voice. She recognizes you as a caretaker. Quan looked down at the tiny creature curled trustingly in his lap. Something warm and terrifying bloomed in his chest. Responsibility. Connection. A bond he hadn't asked for but couldn't refuse. The others will follow soon, Velmara continued. Rin is already showing the signs. Kyle is more resistant, but he will come around. You are becoming their secondary parent figure. I don't know how to be a parent, Quan said, especially not to alien dragon babies. Neither did I, Velmara replied with a sad smile. But we learn by doing, yes? A chime sounded. Commander Hye-Rin touched her communicator. Veltar's ship will arrive in 2 hours. He's demanding immediate communication with Velmara. Velmara's scales darkened with anxiety. I must speak with him, but I fear what I will say. Tell him the truth, Quan said. Your children needed help. You got help. That's not weakness. That's love. You do not understand Dravik's culture. Honor is everything. To accept help from others, especially from species we consider lesser, is profound shame. My brother will see this as my failure. Then your culture is wrong, Quan said flatly. Your babies are alive and healthy because you put them first. That's not failure. That's strength. Velmara stared at him, shocked by his directness. Then slowly she began to laugh. It was a harsh, painful sound, but genuine. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps we have been wrong about many things. She stood and left to take the communication, her wings dragging with exhaustion. Alone with the hatchlings, Quan experimented with his humming. He tried different melodies, different rhythms. The hatchlings responded to each variation slightly differently. Some patterns made their ridges glow brighter. Others caused restless shifting. He found that mixing his grandmother's lullaby with a lower droning note worked best. The combination seemed to cover more of the frequency range they needed. He wasn't perfect, wasn't complete, but he was enough. Rin woke and crawled toward him curiously. The middle hatchling had darker scales than her siblings, deep purple like her mother's. She chirped questioningly and pawed at Quan's toolbox, which sat nearby. "Want to see?" Quan asked softly, maintaining his humming. He pulled out a simple wrench and held it where Rin could see. She touched it with one tiny claw, her ridges brightening with interest. "You like tools?" Quan smiled. He showed her other items, a scanner, a length of wire, a small magnetic grip. Rin's fascination grew with each object. Kale, the largest, woke next. He watched his sister's interaction with Quan warily, keeping his distance. This one would take more time to trust. "It's okay," Quan murmured. "No pressure, you can just listen." He continued humming, letting Kyle observe without forcing interaction. The hatchling's crystalline ridges flickered, processing the sound, deciding whether this strange creature was truly safe. Velmara returned, her expression grim. Veltar is furious. He demands I leave immediately with the children, regardless of their condition. He says I disgrace our family by allowing aliens near Dravik's young. What did you tell him? I told him no. Velmara's voice shook. I have never defied my brother before, but I will not sacrifice my children for his pride. Good, Quan said. He will come aboard when he arrives. He will try to take them by force if necessary. Then we prepare, Hyrin said from the doorway. She had been listening. This station is under human jurisdiction. He can't just take anyone against their will. He will not see it that way. Then we make him see it that way, Tae Yang said, joining them. We have 2 hours. Let's use them. The station crew mobilized. Sora compiled data on the hatchling's neural responses, proving Quan's voice therapy was working. Yuna prepared medical documentation showing the hatchling's improved health. Taeyang secured the docking bay, ensuring Veltar couldn't force entry. Through it all, Quan hummed. His throat was raw, his voice cracking, but he didn't stop. Vic slept peacefully in his lap. Rin played with his tools, making happy chirping sounds. Even Kale had inched closer, though he still maintained a cautious distance. I've been thinking, Sora said, reviewing her data, about why this works. It's not just the frequency range, it's the variation. When Quan hums, he naturally introduces micro-variations based on his breathing, his heartbeat, his emotional state. Those variations make the sound organic, alive. The hatchlings respond to that life, that genuine presence. So recording won't work because recordings are too perfect? Yuna asked. Exactly. The hatchlings need imperfection. They need the sound of a living being who cares about them. Velmara listened to this, her expression thoughtful. In our culture, we have a saying, truth lives in the imperfect. We forgot what it meant. We made honor and perfection the same thing. But this human, with his imperfect voice and strange sounds, speaks truth to my children better than I could alone. An hour before Veltar's arrival, something changed. Kyle finally approached Quan. The largest hatchling climbed onto Quan's other knee, opposite from Vic's, and pressed his face against Quan's chest. His crystalline ridges synchronized with the humming, glowing in rhythm. All 3 hatchlings now accepted him. They are yours now too, Velmara said quietly. In Dravik's culture, you are their second parent. You have the right to speak for their welfare. I'm just a mechanic, Quan said. No, you are the person who saved my children when I could not. That makes you much more than a mechanic. Warning klaxons sounded. Veltar's ship had arrived. Veltar filled the doorway like a storm made flesh. He was larger than Velmara, his scales darker, almost black. His wings spread wide in a dominance display. Golden eyes swept the nursery, taking in everything. His exhausted sister, the 3 sleeping hatchlings, and the human mechanic sitting among them, still humming softly. This is the disgrace I was told about. Veltar's voice rumbled with barely contained fury. You allow this creature to touch your children? This creature saved your nieces and nephew when I could not, Velmara said, standing to face her brother. His name is Quan, and he has done what you could not. He was here when our family was not. Silence! Veltar roared. The hatchlings jerked awake, immediately beginning to cry. The sound was sharp, distressed, feeding off the tension in the room. Quan stood carefully, gathering all 3 hatchlings against his chest. He continued humming, trying to calm them. But his own heart raced with fear. Veltar was massive, powerful, clearly furious. One swipe of those claws could end Quan's life, but the hatchlings needed him, so he stayed. Put down my family's children, Veltar said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Now. No, Quan said, his humming never stopping. Not until they're calm. You dare refuse me? I dare protect babies who need protecting. Veltar moved forward. Commander Hyrin stepped between them, her hand on her weapon. Station security personnel appeared in the corridor, armed and ready. "This is human territory," Hyrin said firmly. "You will follow our rules here, Commander Veltar. These children are Draviks. They belong with their people." "These children are individuals with needs," Hyrin countered. "Right now, their need is to be with someone who can keep them calm and healthy. That person happens to be Quan." Veltar's scales rippled with rage, but he stopped advancing. His eyes fixed on the three hatchlings clutched against Quan's chest. Their cries were already fading as Quan's humming worked its strange magic. "What is he doing?" Veltar asked, his voice uncertain now. Sora stepped forward with her datapad. "He's providing the missing harmonic frequencies your sister cannot produce alone. Without a mate, she can only generate part of the spectrum Dravik's hatchlings need for neural development. Quan's voice accidentally produces frequencies in the missing range. Impossible. No alien species can do this." "Apparently humans can," Sora replied. "I have 3 days of data showing improved health, reduced stress, and proper neural ridge development. The hatchlings are thriving because of Quan's intervention." Veltar looked at his sister. "Is this true?" Velmara nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I was losing them, brother. They cried for days. They would not eat. They would not sleep. Their ridges were beginning to shut down. I was watching my children die, and I could do nothing. Then this human, this strange, quiet mechanic, listened to them. He heard what they needed when I could not provide it. And now they bond to him?" Veltar gestured at the hatchlings, who had indeed settled against Quan, their ridges glowing softly in synchronization with his humming. "Now they see him as parent?" "Yes," Velmara said, "because he acted as parent when they needed one." Veltar's wings drooped slightly. He moved closer. More carefully this time, studying the hatchlings. Little Vix yawned, showing tiny teeth. Rin chirped sleepily and burrowed deeper against Quan's arm. Kyle watched his uncle warily, but did not cry. "They are healthy," Veltar said, his voice softer now. "They look strong." "Because Quan has barely slept or eaten for 3 days, Yuna interjected. "He's pushed himself to exhaustion caring for children who aren't even his species. He's damaged his voice maintaining the humming they need. He's done all this without asking for anything in return." Veltar was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, the rage had drained from his voice. "I came here prepared to fight. I thought my sister had gone mad with grief. I thought you aliens were taking advantage of her weakness." "We're helping," Hyrin said simply. "Yes," Veltar acknowledged. "I see that now." He looked at Quan directly. "You are not what I expected, human." "Neither are you," Quan replied, his humming still steady. A sound that might have been a laugh rumbled from Veltar's chest. "Bold, for something so small. Do you understand what you have done? By bonding with Dravik's hatchlings, you have bound yourself to their welfare. You cannot simply walk away now." "I know. And yet you did it anyway." "They needed help," Quan said. "That's enough reason." The same answer he had given Velmara. The same simple truth. Veltar turned to his sister. "What do you intend to do? You cannot stay on this station forever. These children need to reach our homeworld eventually. They must learn Dravik's ways, be raised among their people." "I know," Velmara said, "but they need Quan. At least until they are stronger, until they can regulate their own neural ridges properly." "How long will that take?" Veltar asked Sora. "Based on my research into Dravik's development, at least 3 months. Possibly 6. The bonding period is critical. If interrupted too early, the hatchlings could experience permanent developmental issues." Veltar's tail lashed in agitation. "So what do you propose? This human cannot abandon his life for 6 months." Everyone looked at Quan. He realized with a strange sense of calm that he had already made his decision. He had made it the moment Vix first crawled into his lap. "I'll go with them," Quan said. "To your home world. I'll stay as long as they need me." Silence filled the nursery. Even the hatchlings seemed to sense the importance of the moment, their ridges brightening with attention. "You would leave your home?" Velmara asked. "Travel to an alien world where you know no one, understand nothing, speak no language, all for children who are not yours?" "They need me. That's enough." "You keep saying that," Veltar observed, "as if need is the only requirement for action. Most beings require much more convincing." "Most beings are wrong," Quan said simply. Veltar studied him for another long moment, then slowly lowered himself to one knee, bringing his massive head level with Quan's. "I came here to retrieve my sister and her children by force, if necessary. I was prepared to kill anyone who stood in my way. But I see now that my sister found something rare. Not weakness, as I thought, but strength of a different kind." He touched his forehead to Quan's, a gesture that made Velmara gasp. "I recognize you as guardian to these hatchlings. You have my protection and the protection of my fleet. You will come to our home world not as prisoner but as honored family." "Thank you," Quan said, though he wasn't entirely sure what he had just agreed to. Veltar stood. "Prepare for departure. The journey will take 3 weeks. In that time, human, you will learn what it means to be Dravik's family. It is not always easy or pleasant." "I'm a mechanic," Quan said. "I fix difficult things. I'll manage." "We shall see." The next 2 hours passed in a blur. Quan packed a small bag with clothes and tools. Tai Yang helped him download language files and cultural information about the Draviks. Yuna provided medical supplies and monitoring equipment. Sora gave him detailed instructions on hatchling care and development. Commander Hyarin pulled him aside before he left. "You don't have to do this. We can find another solution." "There is no other solution," Quan said. "They need me specifically. My voice, my presence. I can't abandon them." "You're a good person, Quan. Better than most." She gripped his shoulder. "Come back safe." "I will." As he carried his bag toward Veltar's ship, station crew members lined the corridor. People he had rarely spoken to, whose names he barely knew. They were all there, watching him leave. "Good luck," someone called. "Take care of those babies," another voice added. Quan nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. Velmara waited at the airlock with the hatchlings in their traveling nest. Vix chirped happily when she saw Quan and tried to climb out to reach him. "They missed you," Velmara said with a sad smile. "You were gone 20 minutes, and they missed you." "I'm here now," Quan said, reaching down to stroke Vix's soft scales. "I'm not going anywhere." Together, they boarded Veltar's warship. The airlock sealed behind them. Quan took one last look at Station Tython 7, his home for 5 years. Then he turned toward his future, 3 tiny hatchlings chirping excitedly in his arms, and started humming. The warship's interior was beautiful and intimidating. High ceilings accommodated Dravik's wings. Everything gleamed with polished metal and smooth stone. Other Dravik's crew members stopped to stare as Quan walked past, carrying the 3 hatchlings while humming his steady lullaby. Veltar had given them quarters near the ship's center, where the engine's vibration would be minimal. The rooms were designed for Dravik's size, making Quan feel like a child in an adult's house. But the nursery had been modified with a smaller sleeping platform for him, positioned close to the hatchling's nest. "The journey will take 3 weeks," Velmara explained, arranging cushions in the nest. "During that time, you must teach me what you do. I need to learn your techniques so I can maintain them when you eventually leave." "When I leave?" Quan asked, settling down with the hatchlings. Vix immediately claimed his lap. Rin curled against his side. Kale, still the most independent, kept a small distance, but watched Quan constantly. "You have a life, Quan, a home. You cannot stay with us forever." "I made a promise. Promises have limits. Not this one." Velmara studied him with her golden eyes. "You are a strange creature. Most beings would have abandoned us by now, honor satisfied. But you speak as if you truly mean to stay until the children no longer need you. Because I do?" She shook her head slowly, but something like hope flickered in her expression. "Then I will teach you Dravik's ways, and you will teach me human compassion. Perhaps we both have much to learn." The first week was difficult. Quan's voice finally gave out completely on day 4. He woke unable to produce any sound above a whisper. The hatchlings panicked immediately, their cries echoing through the ship. Veltar stormed into the nursery. "What is happening?" "His voice is damaged," Velmara said, trying desperately to calm the hatchlings with her own incomplete harmonics. "He needs rest, but the children—" "Then we rest all of them," Veltar decided. "Ship medical bay. Now." The medical officer, a Dravix named Cora, examined Quan's throat with advanced scanners. "Severe strain. Human vocal cords are not designed for continuous use like this. He needs silence for at least 3 days to heal." "The hatchlings will not survive 3 days of distress," Velmara said, her voice breaking. Cora looked at the crying babies, then at Quan, then at Velmara. "Then we find another way. What if we could amplify his heartbeat instead? The hatchlings respond to that too, yes?" They tried everything. Medical resonators that amplified Quan's heartbeat into audible frequencies, recorded samples of his humming mixed with Velmara's voice. Nothing worked perfectly, but together they managed enough. Quan pressed the hatchlings against his chest, letting them feel his heartbeat directly. Velmara hummed her own frequencies. Cora adjusted the medical resonators. It was imperfect, incomplete, but it was enough to keep the hatchlings calm, while Quan's voice healed. During those 3 silent days, Quan learned Dravix in other ways. He watched how Velmara moved, how she communicated with her body language. He studied the hatchlings' own chirps and coos, learning what each sound meant. He discovered that Dravik's culture valued observation over speech, understanding over explanation. By day 5, his voice returned, rough but functional. The hatchling's relief was immediate and obvious. Vix climbed onto his shoulders, chirping happily. Rin brought him a small piece of metal she had found, offering it as a gift. Even Kale finally allowed himself to be picked up and held. "They love you," Velmara said simply, watching the interaction. "I love them too," Quan replied, and meant it. The second week brought different challenges. Several Dravix crew members complained to Veltar about the human on board. How could they allow an alien to parent Dravix young? What message did this send to their people? Would this not weaken their culture? Veltar called a meeting in the ship's central chamber. The entire crew gathered. Quan stood before them, holding Vix, while Rin and Kyle clung to Velmara nearby. "Some of you question my decision to bring this human," Veltar began. "You say our culture forbids alien contact with our young. You say we weaken ourselves by accepting outside help." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "I ask you this," Veltar continued. "What is strength? Is it refusing all help, even when your children die? Is it clinging to tradition while your family suffers? Or is it recognizing when you need assistance and having the courage to accept it?" Silence now. 3 weeks ago, these hatchlings were dying. My sister was helpless, alone, grieving. By our traditional ways, she should have accepted their deaths with honor, should have let them go rather than accept alien help. Veltar's voice grew harder. "Would any of you have made that choice? Would you watch your children die for tradition?" More silence, uncomfortable now. This human asked nothing, wanted nothing. He heard crying and chose to help. He damaged his own body caring for children who are not his species, not his responsibility. He left his home, his people, everything familiar, to honor a promise to beings who can never repay him. Veltar moved to stand beside Quan. If that is weakness, then I choose weakness. If that is shame, then I wear shame proudly. Because those hatchlings live, and they will grow strong, and they will remember that when their mother needed help, it came from an unexpected place. One of the crew members, an older Dravix female named Sora, stepped forward. "May I approach the hatchlings?" Quan looked at Velmara, who nodded. Sora came close and studied the three young ones. Vix chirped at her curiously. Rin hid behind Velmara's wing. Kyle watched the stranger with careful attention. "They are healthy," Sora said finally. "Strong, alert. Their ridges glow properly. Their scales shine. Whatever this human does, it works." She turned to Quan. "You have my respect, small one. You do what many of us would not have the courage to attempt." Others came forward then, touching their foreheads to Quan's in the Dravix gesture of recognition. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to matter. The third week brought joy. The hatchlings were growing rapidly, their scales darkening, their wings beginning to function. They could glide short distances now, though they always glided toward Quan, landing clumsily in his arms. Vix learned to say her first word in common language, Quan. She said it constantly, calling for him whenever he left the room, celebrating when he returned. Rin developed a fascination with tools that rivaled Quan's own. He taught her basic mechanics, showing her how gears worked, how circuits connected. She absorbed everything with intense focus. Kyle remained more reserved, but he began to hum, not words, just sounds, mimicking Quan's lullabies in his own tiny voice. It was the highest compliment the careful hatchling could give. Velmara watched all this with mixed emotions. They are happy, healthy, but they will need their own culture too. Dravix history, traditions, ways of thinking. You cannot teach them that. No, Quan agreed, but you can. We teach them together, human and Dravix. They can be both. Both, Velmara repeated thoughtfully. Not one or the other, but both. Is such a thing possible? They're already proving it's possible. On the final day of the journey, Veltar summoned Quan to the bridge. Through the viewport, a planet hung in space. Blue and green and beautiful. Dravix Prime, Veltar said. Our homeworld. No human has seen it before. I'm honored. You should be terrified, Veltar replied bluntly. The High Council will question everything. Your presence, your bond with the hatchlings. Some will call for your removal, even your imprisonment. This will not be easy. Will they hurt the hatchlings? No, never. Dravix value children above all else. Then I can handle whatever else happens. Veltar made that rumbling sound that might have been laughter. You truly would endure anything for them. Yes. Then I will stand with you. My sister will stand with you. My crew, many of them, will speak for you. But ultimately, the choice belongs to the Council. The ship descended through the atmosphere. Cities appeared below. Graceful structures of stone and metal that seemed to grow from the landscape rather than imposing on it. Dravix flew between buildings, their wings catching the light. They landed in a massive courtyard. Through the windows, Quan saw hundreds of Dravix gathering, all staring at the ship that carried a human. Are you ready? Velmara asked, holding two of the hatchlings while Quan held Vix. No, Quan said honestly. But we're going anyway. The airlock opened. Bright sunlight streamed in, warmer than Station Tython 7, smelling of growing things and wind. Quan stepped out into a new world, a tiny human among giants, carrying a baby dragon who chirped his name. The crowd parted as they walked. Whispers followed them. Stares tracked their movement. At the courtyard center stood 5 ancient Draviks, their scales dulled with age but their eyes sharp with intelligence. "The High Council," Veltar whispered. "Let me speak first." But before anyone could speak, Vix did something unexpected. She wriggled in Quan's arms and glided down to the ground. Her tiny wings caught the air properly for the first time. She landed gracefully in front of the council. Then she sang. It was Quan's lullaby, the one he had hummed 1,000 times during the darkest hours. But Vix sang it in Dravik's harmonics, translated through her own vocal structure. The sound was beautiful, haunting, impossible. Rin joined her, adding a higher harmony. Kyle came last, his deeper tones completing the pattern. Together, the 3 hatchlings sang the human lullaby in Dravik's voice, creating something that had never existed before. The council stood in stunned silence. Then, slowly, the eldest member began to hum the same melody. Others joined. Within moments, hundreds of Dravik's voices filled the courtyard, all singing the strange hybrid song. When the music faded, the eldest council member approached Quan. She touched her forehead to his. "Welcome, Guardian. Welcome home." 6 months later, Quan stood in a small workshop he had built in Velmara's home. It looked like his old workspace on the station, but the tools were mixed now. Human and Dravik's designs side by side. Vix helped him repair a small drone, her claws surprisingly deft with the tiny components. Rin practiced writing Dravik's symbols, carefully forming each character the way Velmara had taught her. Kale sat nearby, humming while he studied star charts. They didn't need Quan's constant humming anymore. Their neural ridges had developed properly. They could regulate their own sensory input, but they still wanted him close, still called him family, still sang his lullaby when they were tired. The door opened. Velmara entered with another Dravix, a female with scales like silver water. "Quan, this is Mira. Her mate died recently. She has 2 hatchlings who will not stop crying." Quan looked at Mira's desperate face and understood immediately. He handed his tools to Vix. "Show me." Within the hour, 2 more hatchlings were peaceful, responding to Quan's voice and presence. Mira cried with relief. Word spread quickly. Other lone Dravik's parents came. Quan taught them human techniques. He shared his lullabies. He showed them that accepting help wasn't weakness. Commander Hyrin's message arrived late that night. "The council wants to know if you're coming home." Quan looked around his workshop, at the hatchlings sleeping in their nest, at Velmara preparing evening meal, at the messages from other Dravik's families asking for his help. He typed his response, "I am home." 3 years later, the cultural exchange program was official. Humans and Dravik's worked together. They learned from each other. They built bridges where walls had stood. And in a small workshop on Dravik's Prime, a human mechanic taught alien children about gears and circuits while they taught him about flight and fire. Vix, Rin, and Kyle grew strong and wise, products of 2 worlds, proof that family wasn't about species or biology. It was about showing up when someone needed you. It was about keeping your promises. It was enough.